Everybody loves to go on vacation. But when you set out for a destination that looks like this, and you end up somewhere that looks like this, you realize very quickly that you have yourself a problem. And in my case, an unhappy fiance. So what can you do? Figure out who you're traveling with, sit down over a cup of coffee, plot your end destination, plot your home location, connect the dots. Or, if you're like me, you wake up the morning of, you open up your phone, Waze, Apple Maps, say, Siri, get me to Boston, and she gets you there. Your social media strategy should be the exact same. Without defining your goals, without setting that end destination, you'll never know if the tactics you're deploying are successful. You'll never know if all you're doing is shouting into the clutter, Candy Crush invites, sports updates, updates from bands, or if you're generating true business ROI from the tactics that you're deploying. Before we get started, I want to mention that while I do have this presentation, if you're doing any of these tactics, you're deploying any of the tactics, the strategies, you want to chat about it, more than available to answer those questions while we're talking. This is Jay Baer. He's the founder of Convince and Convert. He has a quote that I use in every presentation that I give that says, the goal is not to be good at social media. The goal is to be good at business because of social media. This is important. As we talk to clients, prospects throughout the staffing industry, actually an email that I just got this afternoon, the client was upset, not upset, but just questioning why they weren't generating more likes on Facebook. And my reply is because that's not the goal. The goal is more applications and job orders. Sure, likes on Facebook are good, and it feels good when we see more people liking our page, but ultimately that's just a tactic. That isn't the goal. The goal is more applications and more job orders. While I say that, and we go back to Jay Baer's quote, we need to understand how to use these specific tools. You need to understand Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Snapchat, and understand that each platform has very specific nuances. How you talk on Twitter shouldn't be how you talk on LinkedIn. The messaging should be very, very specific to that platform. So while you might be able to understand the tools, that doesn't make you a great plumber. And that's important, right? Understanding the tools, but ultimately coming back to this roadmap, coming back to the roadmap to social media success. Again, this is Jay Baer, the founder of Convince and Convert. The quote is, the goal is not to be good at social media. I don't want to be good at social media. Vince introduced me as a social media expert. I would rather be before you and say that I'm great at generating staffing firm applications and generating job orders for the clients that I work with. I don't want to be good at social media. Step one in the roadmap to social media success, defining your goals. If we think about going on a road trip, my flight from Buffalo to Boston, you think about how you get here, you need to have an end destination. You need to know what you're trying to achieve. When I say define your goals, I mean define SMART goals. What are SMART goals? They're specific, they're measurable, they're achievable, they're realistic, and they're time-bound. If you were to come to me and say, Brad, I need a social strategy to generate more applications, that's not a goal, that's a wish, that's a hope. You're hopeful that the tactics you deploy, that everything that goes out on social media generates more applications. If you were to say, Brad, I want more welding applications, now we have a specific goal. Say, Brad, I want 40 more welding applications, now it's measurable. Let's assume that it's achievable and realistic, and that in this theory, in this scenario, the individual places welders. Then put a time-bound stamp on it. Brad, I want 40 more welding applications by May 1st. Now I can get to work. We can get to work. We can deploy social media tactics and ultimately bring it against that benchmark, bring it against that goal, so that when March 1st hits, we know if we were successful. Again, the goal is not to be good at social media. The goal is to be good at business because of the tool that is social media. Step two in the roadmap, conceptualizing your strategy. I'm going to go through a series of strategies and tactics later in this presentation, so I'm not going to spend, just getting the cord here. I'm not going to spend a ton of time on strategy right now, but once we have a goal, we then need to outline the strategy that we're going to use to ultimately get us towards that goal. Step 3 is outlining our tactics. What tactics can we deploy on social media that will fuel that strategy and ultimately get us to our goal? Back to the roadmap analogy, if the goal is a family vacation, the strategy is to get the family to Boston. The tactic is to get on a plane, sit in the Buffalo airport for 5 hours because Boston was getting snow, and then ultimately get there. So we have tactics, strategies, goals. Ultimately, we always want to come back to step 1, defining smart business goals. Not smart social media goals, not tactical goals, but coming back to what we're trying to achieve as a business. The main goal of all staffing firms, everybody that I've talked to in the industry, 2 main goals: job applications and job orders. For the sake of this presentation, we're going to outline a roadmap to more job applications. We're not going to have SMART goals today because I don't know specifically the goal that you have, but all of this will translate over. Throughout the presentation, once I outline the goals, strategies, tactics, we got 15 to 20 different social media tactics that you can deploy. So what drives job applications? From a strategy standpoint, what will generate more job applications? Job board visits, form submissions. Maybe it's a telephone call directly to your office, an email to one of your recruiters or staffing specialists, website visits, becoming an employer of choice in your local market. Maybe it's establishing a referral program, activating passive candidates, attracting new candidates, reactivating past candidates. I was in Charlotte speaking at the ASA Symposium 2 weeks ago, and in the keynote presentation, Taryn had mentioned that the average contract is 10.7 weeks for somebody placed on assignment. My initial question sitting at a table was, well, what happens to that individual afterwards? Reactivating past candidates is an incredible way to get people back into that funnel. We're going to talk about that. And last, we'll talk about showcasing your brand identity on social media. That's the fun part. That's where you take pictures of your team, showcase who you are. So the tactics. How can we leverage social media to support our strategies? We start to go through these tactics. I have a little bit of a disclaimer. I in no way want to overwhelm anybody. My goal is to give you a series of tactics that you could leave with and deploy this afternoon. Monday when you get to the office, think about it for some time and then deploy one. Start with one. Don't get overwhelmed. My goal is not to overwhelm anybody. It's to present different tactics so that you can find what works best for you and what you're already comfortable with. If your company's using LinkedIn, don't jump right into Facebook because it's a tactic that I outline. Stick where you're comfortable. Excel there and then move on to the next platform. Before we get into tactics, I want to talk about Facebook, LinkedIn, and Twitter and their specific nuances. I said it was important that we understand the tools. Facebook had an update a month ago that said, with this update, we will also prioritize posts that spark conversations and meaningful interactions. Facebook, every time you log in, can show you up to 10,000 different stories. Friends posts, baby pictures, game invites, maybe it's scores from around the baseball, band updates. Facebook has all this stuff and all this clutter that it could show you. It uses an algorithm to rank all of those so that when you log in, Facebook is trying to show you what you want to see before you know what you want to see. So Facebook's newest update is weighting meaningful interactions. What does that mean? If you're posting content to your company Facebook page, Facebook is looking at if people are commenting on it, if people are clicking like, if they're sharing it, if they're communicating with people in the comments of that post. Facebook wants to know that the content you're posting isn't just throwaway noise, that you're actually adding value to the community. We'll talk about meaningful interactions. LinkedIn. The mission of LinkedIn is simple. Connect the world's professionals to make them more productive and successful. So Facebook wants to be the place where everyone hangs out. Zuckerberg said that he fears that people spend too much time on Facebook. One-on-one conversation, if I could have that conversation with him, I think he wants people to spend much more time on Facebook because the longer you're on Facebook, the more ads he can serve you and the more money he can make. He doesn't want you off of Facebook. The mission of LinkedIn is productivity. So when you're posting content on LinkedIn, frame it in a way that talks about the end user. Social media isn't a megaphone. If you're controlling a social media strategy and you're using it to talk to 1,000 people, you're using social media wrong. Social media is a one-to-one conversation that you're having 1,000 times. So when you're talking about productivity, making others successful, don't think about sharing your message with, let's say, 100 people. Instead, think about the one person that's sitting on their couch, scrolling through LinkedIn and sees that update. What will that update do for them? Because they're worried about themselves. They're not worried about all of your LinkedIn connections. They're not worried about everybody else. They want to be successful. So again, that social media strategy, that social media dialogue, what you're posting, shouldn't be one-to-many. It should be one-to-one that you're having multiple times. Twitter. Twitter is what's happening now. It's what's happening in the world, what people are talking about right now. Twitter is a news site. Twitter wants to be a news site. When you see something, something's going on, Twitter wants you to go there first and share what you're seeing. If you go to Twitter and you click on tweet, you go to compose a tweet, the first thing it says is what's happening. It doesn't ask you to share a job, it doesn't ask you to share a blog post, it wants to know what's happening right now. What do you see? So again, when we talk about these specific nuances of each platform, Facebook, post in a way that generates conversation. Twitter, think about what you're seeing and what you're doing. A job that's available now. LinkedIn, how can that post, how can that job make somebody else productive? How can it make them more successful? Understanding how these platforms intersect with each other is important. So we're going to get into tactics. Again, if you've tried any of these, you want to chat about any of these, you have questions, you disagree with what I'm saying, we'd love to talk about it. The first way to generate more applications through social media is to generate job board visits from Twitter. So what can you do? I would encourage you to first create a visual graphic, hot jobs, now hiring, looking for work, need a job, need work. Think about your specific industry and how those candidates and how those applicants would talk. Use their copy. Also, use that imagery. See the Hutco example? It's a hard hat. They're work on a shipyard. They specialize in that. Wood personnel at the bottom, does more professional. So we have that imagery reflecting who the target candidate would be. If you're placing light industrial candidates, having a picture of somebody in a suit doesn't match them. They can't see themselves in that picture. So think about who the end candidate is, and again, have that one-to-one with them. What are you seeing? What's happening? And ultimately, how can it make them more productive and more successful? Put a box in red here. For the longest time, probably the past 4 years, we've been advocating for setting up an auto feed of jobs from your job board to Twitter. Twitter has recently said, do not allow your users to simultaneously post identical or substantially similar content to multiple accounts. For example, your service should not permit a user to select several accounts they control from which to publish a given tweet. What does that mean? If you have a deliberate account, maybe use Buffer, Hootsuite, a scheduling tool, Twitter wants you to be authentic. Again, the purpose of Twitter is news. It wants to know what's happening. So if you're sharing one tweet for 5 people, 5 accounts, those accounts are going to start to be negatively impacted because of that. So what can you do differently? You'll see we've added in specific hashtags around Georgia because that's where this particular client is from. If you're going to share, automatically share out those jobs, I would encourage each feed to either have different hashtags, different copy, some sort of uniqueness to it, so that Twitter can identify that that account isn't doing the exact same thing as somebody else. Job board visits from Facebook. First thing you can do if you want to generate more applications from social media on Facebook, post a link back to an available job opportunity. So that example would be in the top, Torchlight Hired. That goes right back to their job board, where an applicant can apply, Again, we have visuals that match the look and feel of the target audience. Second way would be to use Facebook jobs. Anybody familiar with Facebook jobs? So for those of you that don't have your hand up, Facebook has rolled out a job board specifically on Facebook. They're starting to compete with LinkedIn. LinkedIn slants more towards that professional demographic. Facebook, with 2.2 billion people on it, tailors more towards the light industrial audience from what we've seen. And they know that that audience isn't on LinkedIn. So they're competing in that space now. Facebook jobs, what happens? You'll see the HDSS example on the far side. You upload a job to Facebook through Facebook jobs. If an applicant were to click apply now, click that button, Facebook will scrape their profile. It'll take their name, their email, their phone number, and submit what Facebook considers to be an application. You'll get that in your Facebook messages on the company page. I consider it more of a lead than an application because you haven't done any additional screening, you haven't done any sort of pre-qualification forms, you don't have any information about who they are, aside from what they've allowed to be public on their Facebook page. What you can do once somebody reaches out that way is message them one-to-one. Saw you apply for this production worker opportunity, you can complete the application here and link them back to the full URL, back to your job board where they can apply. You can set up an autoresponder on Facebook where if somebody messages you, they automatically get a reply and they're automatically prompted to do something. That's chatbots. The AI panel this morning started to talk about chatbots and getting more involved with chatbots. If you're going to do that on Facebook, I would encourage you to make it generic enough where if somebody just messages you or sends a Facebook job application this way, they're prompted to take a next step. I would drive that to the job board or your opportunities, wherever those might be. The last would be to use Facebook groups. So, like LinkedIn groups, which are much more popular, Facebook has a groups section where people with like-minded personalities, interests can basically hang out on Facebook. Facebook groups are, in my opinion, very, very underutilized. See, this example was shared into Lehigh Valley group. If you look at your local market and where you're actually placing candidates, so if it's Boston, just use that as an example. If it's Buffalo, New York, I know it's not. But search for city hiring, city jobs, and look for groups. There are communities that already exist on Facebook of people that are looking for jobs in your city. So instead of posting a job to your company page or out through personal channels, while I would still advocate for that, go where people are already talking. Go to those groups, and if people are asking questions, answer them. Don't just go in and spam job after job after job, but add value. People are looking for an opportunity, and you have something that matches what they're looking for, sure. Link back to your job board. But if they're just asking questions, be a part of that community. Provide value so that ultimately, when they're looking for a job, let's just say they have a question, when they are looking for a job, they know to come to you instead of your competitors. Any questions on Facebook? Awesome.
Does it cost money to post Facebook jobs?
It does not, yet. I don't know where that's going. They just announced a partnership with Career Builder. So if your ATS is through Career Builder, Facebook will automatically start to pull those jobs into Facebook jobs. I've seen the earliest is April, I want to say 12th. I just got the notification actually yesterday for a client. So what's going to happen is you'll post a Career Builder and it'll already come through as a Facebook job automatically. It's free to do. You could boost that post, you could promote it with some ad spend. So if you want to target a specific demographic or a specific geographic location, you could do that. The only hesitation there, as you know, you can't hire based on age or screen based on age. Facebook will instinctively put an age parameter on your ad. It's usually 18 to 65. There was an Inc. article that came out a month or two ago about companies that were getting in trouble because of this. Unintentionally. There was no intention of blocking people from seeing certain advertisements or certain job opportunities, but because of the ad settings, they hadn't thought to go through and eliminate that, so just be careful there. Blogging for placements. So creating blog content, creating content that ultimately leads to applications. I'm a huge proponent of content filming this presentation now because over the next month, I'll chop it up along with the presentation from Charlotte last week into smaller bite-sized pieces of content. Blogging, if you haven't started creating blog content, is a great way to get people back to your website where they can ultimately take action. We're going to talk about calls to action on the next slide. But if you haven't started a blogging program, what I would encourage you to do is think about all the questions that you get on a weekly basis, monthly basis. Think about the question that you get time after time and answer it and publish it on your website. That's what I do for all the blog content that I create because I hate writing the same email more than once. So I'll write that blog, I'll publish it on the site, and now when I get that question again, say, great question, I just wrote this article, I published it last week. If you have any questions, let me know. I've addressed the question, I've helped that individual, I've funneled them to our website where they can then see all the CTAs, the calls to action, and then they can take their next step. Blogging for placement. So start with content, topics, questions that you know you get frequently so that you never have to answer that question again. The only time you would answer it again would be if something changes. Social media is always changing, so the content that I write, or the content that I wrote last year, needs to be updated this year, just the nature of it. We were talking about the Me Too movement in the session before. If there's HR policies that are changing, writing about that, updating that post. Maybe it's the same article, but every 6 months you go back and you add to it, and you put that at the top of the blog post, and you say updated as of April 1st. The reason we create blog content is because you want to have a healthy mix of content when it comes to your social strategy. We don't want to just send out job after job. So what we can do is send blog articles to social media so that ultimately people take the next step. Natively, instinctively, if somebody comes to your website from Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, their initial thought is, how do I get back to Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter? They'll get the answer that they're looking for, and then they're on their way. Unless we interrupt that. We interrupt that with calls to action. So maybe it's a sidebar, maybe it's a fly-in, so it really catches their attention. But ultimately what we want to do is tell them their next step. Because otherwise their next step is to go back to Facebook, keep scrolling while they watch Jeopardy. So what CTAs would I recommend? If we're trying to target candidates, I would do submit your resume, browse available jobs, and as a third option, contact us today. You're busy, I understand you're busy. Contact us, pick up the phone and call me, in my opinion, should never be the first step. Unless you love getting on the phone and being interrupted when you're working, I would rather funnel people to a job board where they can look to see if the jobs that we have available are in line with their skill set, and then if they have questions, they can either apply or give us a call. If it's just questions, comments, call me, you have no idea what you're about to talk about. So scheduling that call, thinking about that, that's how I would structure it. If you welcome phone calls all day, and you welcome being interrupted while you're working, then maybe you move that to the top slot. I personally think that giving somebody an action item that they can complete on their own when they're here makes more sense. Especially if this is 10:30 at night and somebody wants to browse an available job or submit a resume while they're doing that nighttime search. Let's say they've put their kids to bed, they just work 9 to 5, they hate their job, so they're looking for a new job. They're working when you're not. That's why I like the opportunity of submitting a resume, browsing available jobs. As a bonus tip, you can add what's called UTM parameters to these buttons. UTM is Google Analytics tracking. That lets you know how many times this button's being clicked. Lets you know how many times people are going from Facebook to a blog article, to a contact page, and actually submitting that contact form. So UTM parameters, you can set that up on these links so that you know exactly what initiatives are working. When we talk about the roadmap to social media success and knowing what tactics are successful, analytics and data are the only way to know if what we're doing is successful. And UTM parameters make that much more efficient and effective. Emails and phone calls. So I said my top options are to empower that person to take action without me. Apply for a job, send us your resume, but take that first step. Or, if you're passionate about emails and phone calls, and that's totally fine, I'm okay with that, you can add CTAs that say contact us, in the case of Nancy, click here to email Nancy. Or click that phone number if it was on a mobile device where that would click right out and you could actually call somebody directly. Facebook also allows you to set up different buttons on your Facebook page. So natively it might say message us, contact us. You could add call now. There's a services button, learn more about us, which could go back to your website. Think about your goal. What are you trying to accomplish? So if your goal is more phone calls, then yeah, that button should absolutely be call now. If it's to learn about who you are or to sign up for your newsletter, it should go back to a web page where that individual can take that action. Just like the website CTA's calls to action, you could put a CTA parameter, a UTM parameter on any of these buttons, these links, so that you know exactly what's working. Website traffic from social media. Facebook wants meaningful interactions because they want you to live on Facebook. They don't want you to leave. I want a job seeker or an applicant off of Facebook as quick as possible. My goal is always to get somebody off of Facebook where I can then control the messaging. I control the copy they're seeing. I control the calls to action. I control their next step in terms of a conversion funnel. Getting them off of social media, away from that clutter, where they see my post and continue scrolling, is critical. So we want to look at Google Analytics, and I know I mentioned that already, but we want to look at what's going on with our specific website. So Google Analytics is completely free. If you don't have that installed on your website, that would be my recommendation as a first step, the first tactic to deploy. All the other tactics are fair game. Do what works best for you. But without Google Analytics, without metrics, without data, you won't know if any of the other tactics you're deploying are working. And at that point, what's the point? So we want to see consistent growth from social media. We want to see that the tactics we're deploying in March were successful. When we compare quarter to quarter, year over year, we want to know that what we're doing is generating business success, generating more applications, or generating more job orders. Analytics will let us do that. Does anybody have Google Analytics installed on their website? Can you, let's say right here, do you know how to go in and actively look at that data? And if not, that's okay.
Not very well. I do go in and look at it and I try to understand it.
So when you look at the data, and really anybody that raised their hand, when you look at the data, what are you looking for? What would be your KPI, or that key performance indicator? What would deem success? Anybody? Sure.
Sources of referral into the site, and then understanding kind of where those sources move towards a conversion, right? Application or click.
I think that's great. So setting up analytics, looking at a conversion page, so if it's the job board, if it's a contact form, looking at the thank you page, and then working backwards from there. 100% agree with that. Looking at the fact that 100 people or 1,000 people came to the website from Facebook in February, sure, that's great, and if I reported that number to a client, they might be happy, but a better stat would be, hey, we had 100 people come to your website from Facebook. I know the number might not sound like a lot, but of that, 15 looked at your job board, and of that, 5 actually completed the application. So we can see that on January, let's just say 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, you got 5 applications from Facebook. Did you reach out to anybody on those days? Did you follow up with anybody? Are any of those people actually placed on assignment right now? That's what I want to know. I want to know if the tactics not only generated an application, but what happened then. That's their turn. So for us, it's difficult. As a social media marketer in Buffalo working with different companies across the country, I don't often get that part of the puzzle. I don't know if Brad Bialy came from Facebook, applied, and then ultimately found an opportunity and was placed. But that's critical. It's good to know that information. Becoming an employer of choice through social media. All of the tactics that we deploy ultimately help us to become an employer of choice. So when somebody makes the decision to look for a new job opportunity, they contact you instead of your competition. They look at your website instead of somebody else. They ignore the fact that they might be able to go to a competitor for 25 cents more an hour because they like you and they trust you. Maybe it's $1 more. How do we become an employer of choice? First, we want to showcase who we are. I'm going to talk about brand identity later in the presentation, but social media is the perfect way to showcase your team so that when somebody finally comes into your office or they email you or they pick up the phone and Brad Bialy picks up on the other end, they already feel like they know me. Ahead of this conference, I connected with just about half of the attendees on LinkedIn, so if you got a LinkedIn invite from me, strategic. What I'm hoping for is that by the time I get from Buffalo to Boston, you know who I am, and then when we sit in this room and we start to talk, I'm more comfortable presenting to you. Feel like friends when we get around the lunch table instead of somebody that's just now meeting for the first time. That actually happened at lunch today. 2 or 3 different individuals have mentioned how they remember seeing my LinkedIn connection. Building online reviews, another way to become an employer of choice. Online reviews are growing in importance. Facebook weights pages based on different things. I know I mentioned their algorithm and meaningful interactions. They're also looking at reviews. If you have 400 one-star reviews and your competitor has 300 5-star reviews, and somebody searches for staffing firms in Boston, who do you think is going to show up in search? Facebook doesn't want to give them the wrong answer. They're just like Google. So if you Google something, Google's trying to show you the answer that will best fit your needs. Facebook wants to do the same thing because they want you to stay on Facebook longer. So building online reviews. I mentioned Jay Baer. He's not really a mentor of mine, but somebody that I do respect and look up to a lot. He has a book called Hug Your Haters. It's about building online reviews and controlling your online reputation. I'll encourage you all to read it. It's a great book. Essentially, the steps are this. Somebody leaves a negative review. Step 1, to reach out and address it. Never delete a review, unless it's derogatory, racist, sexist, those are the different things, then sure, obviously. But if it's just about a bad experience, address it. I'm sorry you had this bad experience with us. Try to live up to a high standard. If you have questions or would like to chat, here's my phone number. Here's my email. I know I said when it comes to calls to action, we want that person to take action first without emailing or calling. When it comes to reviews or online reputation management, you want that to go to a private section as quickly as possible. Never ask for feedback on Facebook, because all that's going to happen is that person is going to come back stronger. Let's say they did have a really bad experience. Now what? You say, hey, if you want to talk about it, give me a call. I don't want to talk to you. I already said you never return my phone calls, this, and this. They're already upset. So they come back with another reply. Jay Baer, Hug Your Haters, says to address it a second time. Brad, I'm sorry you had a negative experience with our company. We'd love to correct this. Please give us a call, or better yet, we have your number on file. I'll call you Friday at 3 p.m. and we'll chat. If they come back a third time, let it go. At that point, you've done everything you can to address the situation. Sure, you've addressed it on social media. Maybe even still, you reach out to that individual if they don't come back and say, yes, please call me. I think for the sake of your organization, it makes sense to call them, figure out what went wrong so that you can fix that problem, fix that issue. You address it twice, and then let it go on social. There are also things that you can do on Facebook specifically to monitor racist, sexist, just derogatory comments. So in the settings on your Facebook page, if you go to Settings, General, Page Moderation, you can put in specific words that Facebook will block. So if you Google bad words to block on Facebook, a blog post will come up. We did not write it, not at all affiliated with this company or the list, but there's 753 bad words that this organization said you should block on Facebook. I'll warn you, it's aggressive. But what happens? You copy that list, you put it into the page moderation section in your settings. So now, anybody that uses that word or any of those words on your Facebook page, to them, the comment, the message is left. They can see it. Nobody else will, though. It's immediately hidden from your page because of that word. So I would encourage you to set up that page moderation. I would also encourage you to use the profanity filter and set that to strong. That's a safety net. If somebody thinks of a word that isn't on that list, send it to me so that I can update the list that we have. But it's that other page moderation and that privacy setting will also help. Last part about becoming an employer of choice is thinking about putting together a like campaign. So I mentioned earlier that somebody reached out to me asking about why they're not generating more likes on Facebook. My reply was, well, that's not the main goal. But even still, we want to talk to more people. And if, as a tactical goal, we do want to generate more page likes so that we can talk to more people, then putting together a like campaign is a great way to do that. Using Facebook's Business Manager, the ads platform, to serve targeted ads so that people like your page that you already know. What I would do. 1, set it up based on geographic location. Set it up based on demographics. So I only want people within a 25-mile radius of Boston who are interested in XYZ to see this ad so that they like the page. A better idea, and what I would recommend on top of that, would be to take your ATS list, export your candidate email list as an Excel doc, or as a CSV rather, upload that to the ads platform. Now you're serving targeted ads to people that have already applied with your organization. They already know who you are. So when they see your ad, it's not a cold call, it's a warm lead. You're asking them to like your page, but they already know who you are. So taking that list, uploading it, serving ads that way. You can also build what's called a lookalike audience off of that list. So let's say your ATS list has 100 people. I hope it has a lot more, but let's say 100 as an easy number. You upload that list to Facebook, and then you tell Facebook to build a lookalike audience off of that list. It's going to match those email addresses to Facebook accounts that also use that email address. It'll also look at those profiles and serve ads to people that are similar to that person. Little creepy, but it can be done. As long as we're not filtering by age, everything's good. So building likes, gaining traction, boosting content based on those lists, serving your blog posts, your available job opportunities based on that list, or a lookalike audience from that list.
Do we need any special tools to use this, uploading this CSV or?
You don't. So right in Facebook's Business Manager,
Okay.
You can upload that right in and right at the ad settings.
Thank you.
You got it. Attracting new candidates. So what can we do to attract people that don't know who you are on social media? We talked about a like campaign on Facebook. So yes, we could target a list, a lookalike audience, or we could target based on geographic location. If you're on LinkedIn, I would encourage you to look up titles, roles that you're trying to fill. Filter by, I did this actually this morning, I pulled this example. So project manager. When you click search, you'll then get that lower bar where it says Greater Boston, second connections. Filter the secondary location by where you're actually trying to fill that role. Then look for secondary connections. A secondary connection is somebody that you're connected to through somebody else. So we want to look at secondary connections because now, Victoria Bryan, Olivia Regan, I want to connect with them. I see that they're a project manager in Boston. I need a project manager in Boston. Let's connect real quick. Leave it at that. Say hello, introduce yourself. Don't immediately try to sell an opportunity. Don't immediately try to get them to jump ship from one opportunity to another. But start to generate that conversation and grow your list. What you can then do, let me back up for a second. Again, I'm not saying in any way to deploy all these tactics. I am not trying in any way to overwhelm anybody. I want to present as many tactics as I can in an hour so that when you get back to the office, you can try one of them. Okay? So if we think about going to LinkedIn, and we're looking for a project manager in Boston, start with connecting to 15, 20 people every other day. Think about it like a workout program. You get to work Monday, Wednesday, Friday, make your morning cup of coffee, you're still not fully ready to go. I get that. So be somewhat productive and start recruiting this way. Again, we're looking at secondary connections because those are people that we're connected to through somebody else. So Victoria Bryan, her and I have 5 shared connections. Assuming that's one of her friends, she's more likely to accept my connection request.
Sorry, since I've never really used LinkedIn, so for this, I would have to do a LinkedIn profile for myself?
Correct. Correct. So step 1 would be to create your own professional LinkedIn account.
Okay, so
And I would encourage you to do that.
Based on myself and my resume, or based on the agency?
Based on who you are. What we're doing here is we're growing a personal brand that will fuel the company you work for. So what happens, and I have a perfect example, I connect with about 20 people every single day. I'm connecting with the conference attendees that I present for. I connect with people throughout the staffing and recruiting industry. I now have 9,500 connections on LinkedIn, and what happens because of that, when I share video content, when I share blog opportunities, blog content, more people see that content than if the company posts through the company channels. So my profile is now an asset to Haley Marketing Group. Your profile would become an asset. As you're connecting to more people, you share job opportunities, more people will see those. I had a question come up, I was speaking in Colorado, and a question came up of why would I want to grow somebody's personal brand? What if they leave? My comment back was, well, what if you don't? What if they don't go out and actively recruit people this way? What else are they doing? They still have job orders to fill. They're still looking for project managers in Boston. We're just doing it by 2018 standards. So they grow their connections and they become a brand ambassador so that when they share content, they share jobs, and more people see it. If they leave, they're going to leave for different reasons. It's okay. So think about growing your personal brand, using that personal brand to then fuel the organization. On Twitter, what I would look to do is look for localized Twitter accounts for your specific area. Don't follow Patriots because I'm from Buffalo. But what I would say is, instead of looking at that account, which has followers from across the world, look at the Rose Art Museum, look at Waltham's, Massachusetts Police Department, because the people that are following those smaller accounts are going to be from that area. So again, it has nothing to do with the Patriots, but it has to do with, it might, but it has to do with the fact that if 7 million people follow them, and you're now following people that live in Buffalo, while I might like you, I can't apply to your job. I'm not ready to move, I don't want to move. I like where I am. So we want to follow people that are in our local area. So what I would do is I would go through, say the firefighter account, click follow, and then I would look at who they're following and who is following that account. And on a given day, while you're doing the LinkedIn connections, follow 20 accounts. What will happen is those people will start to reciprocate that follow and they'll follow you back. So now we're following target accounts from our local market. They're following us back. So when we tweet, people are listening. Sure.
Quick question for you, because obviously when you say you follow 40 people, maybe 5, 10
Yep.
could possibly follow you back. Is there a certain cadence you should do it at so that you're not following 1,000 people and you have 25 followers?
Yep.
Doesn't that kind of look?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Twitter restricts you to be around that 25 to 30.
Okay.
Once you get to that point, they'll lock you out and you have to reset your password. So, don't go
That's
above that.
per day?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, per 24 hours. So I would start at, let's say, 25 every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and then expand from there. Twitter will lock you down. LinkedIn, it says here that I've reached my commercial use limit because I've connected now with everybody in this room. Conference last week, I connect on a daily basis. So once I hit that limit, I won't be able to send connection requests for another month. So I need to take it easy for a couple days.
Or pay them?
Or pay them and buy a recruiter pack, yes. I don't want to do that though. And again, Facebook like campaigns. Any other questions about personal branding, growing that personal channel? For Facebook and Twitter, I'm saying leverage the company account, but you could do that for yourself as well. LinkedIn, actually connecting with individuals, that would be on a personal level. Activating passive candidates. Who in the past 6 months has looked at a product on Amazon? Everybody. Who, in the same 6 months, then saw that product on Facebook in the form of an advertisement? So that's called remarketing. We can do that with job opportunities. Remarketing, what happens, you put code on your website so that when somebody hits a targeted page with that code, a cookie is placed on their machine. So now when they go to Facebook, they see an ad for that product. Amazon's great at it. All major retailers are great at it. The staffing industry can also be great at it. Something that we offer, it's called re-recruiting, or you're fully capable of doing this yourself as well. What would happen is if an applicant, let's say we funnel them to our website with a great piece of blog content. So they're on our site from a blog article. Now they're taking the next step because of our call to action. Now they're on the job board. They're not ready to apply. It's 10:30 at night, they're just thinking about it. So they leave. We funneled them in, and we let them walk right out the door. If we have remarketing on the website, now they're in a circular loop where we continue to funnel them back to the website. We found that repeat visitors are twice as likely to apply for a job opportunity. So if you're spending recruitment dollars, you're spending marketing dollars to get people to your website, not having remarketing code on that page to get them back to the site is detrimental to your overall success. We have found to use fun, copy. Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, repeat.
It's
Is
fine.
there like a name of that plugin?
Remarketing is the actual PPC tactic. The actual plugin that you would use, you have to look, you probably have to contact your web developer. You could probably do it if you have WordPress through a certain plugin. I would have your web developer hard code that directly onto the page though, and make sure it's fired appropriately. Sure.
Do you have any tips for LinkedIn Recruiter or Sales Nav?
In what respect?
Huh?
In what respect?
Well, just like you have a million different tips for
Yeah.
all these. I just
Sure.
didn't know because they dive deeper. I didn't know if there's any tricks for those.
So, full transparency, I've only been inside Recruiter once or twice because only one or two of my clients actually use it.
Okay.
And he was the only one that was comfortable enough to give me his password and actually explore it.
Okay.
I understand that it has better search functionality, it has better capabilities. You can post jobs, that's great, we can actually talk about that in a second. If you don't want to invest in that though, I don't really think it's necessary. The benefit there is if you're posting jobs on LinkedIn, those are going to the company page, every time somebody applies for that job, they automatically like your page. So it's a great way to gain likes on LinkedIn. So if you're seeing some companies that have 10,000, 20,000 likes on LinkedIn, it's because they have some sort of pack where they have, say, 50 jobs. Now, every time somebody applies, they automatically like the page. What do you see working for Recruiter?
We use, I'm not in recruiting anymore.
Okay.
For about 15 years, but for my sales force, we use Sales Nav constantly,
Okay.
and it's amazing.
Yeah.
It dives deep. Again, I just didn't know if you had any further insight because we work that thing every day to,
Yeah.
till it's almost broken, and I just didn't know if we're missing anything. So.
It's an awesome asset, and the search functionality is really what you're paying for because you can refine that.
Yeah.
So in my example, where we were looking at project managers in Boston, you could refine that and look at project managers at a very specific organization and really refine that so you're connecting with the right person. I think you can also do that with the free approach, and I know you can do that with the free approach because I've gone through and I've connected with one of the new things that I've been doing and could probably be replicated for you. Every client that I work with, I'm now connecting with everybody in their organization. I post video content every single day. I post blog content every single day. I want them to understand that I'm giving them the free resources and the tools to be successful. I also want to prove myself as a thought leader on all of these topics. And I don't just want Greg to see that. I want his whole team to know that I know what I'm talking about. So from your standpoint, connecting with clients, connecting with not only the decision maker and the people your primary contact, but connecting with their other coworkers. So now when you're sharing blog content, others are seeing it. Others are seeing the available jobs that you have, and they're sharing those. Activating passive candidates. We talked about the question, right? For putting remarketing code on? Great. Any other questions before we keep going? No. Reactivating past candidates. Using email marketing. So I understand it's the roadmap to social media success, but if we didn't talk about email or text messaging, I'd be doing a disservice. Using hot jobs emails are a great way to get in front of candidates, passive or active, that you don't talk to on a monthly basis. So in these examples, one on the closer side to me, taking your 4 best job opportunities that you have, emailing it to your candidate list with a short note, all of which would go right back to your job board where they could then apply for that. Let's say you have 100 people in your ATS. Again, hopefully that number's higher. 100. You're not making 100 emails every single month to make sure everybody's okay. You're not reaching out to Brad, seeing if his assignment is ending soon and wants another opportunity. You don't have the time. You don't have the resources. So this is a way to get all of your opportunities in front of an individual. You could also mix in fun seasonal mailings, looking at March Madness, Easter. Maybe it's just talking about other holidays, Christmas. Just another way to get your organization in front of individuals, because again, you don't have the time to make on a monthly basis all those phone calls, all those emails. So automate it and send it out in an email newsletter. Think about retailers, Express, maybe it's a sporting goods store, Under Armour, they're sending 5 or 6 emails a day. I felt almost unsubscribed from Express because of how many times they email me on a given day. But when I go to buy a suit or I go to buy a new shirt, I'm going to go to Express because they're always top of mind. We want that to be the exact same in the staffing industry. If somebody's looking for a job, whether it's today or in June, they have opportunities. We want to make sure they're calling you instead of your competition. Anybody using text marketing, text messages, job alerts? How's it working for you?
We're new to it.
Okay.
So I don't have enough data to say it's good or bad, but we've been trying it.
Okay.
We've had some success. The reality is this, we do it very transactional.
Sure.
So we use it really to announce a message or
Okay.
rather than approval.
Okay. Are you with the same company?
No, I'm actually with a different company.
Okay.
So we have one staffing manager that uses it religiously, and she loves it. The rest of us are fairly new to it. We use it through our acting, our ATS
Sure.
system. It's integrated right in there. It's really easy because people just, they get back to us really quickly. So as long as we keep the messages short about what it is,
Yep.
with text.
Saw a stat, and I can't remember the source, but it said that 99% of text messages are open in the first minute. The first minute, not just open in general, but the first minute. So if you have job opportunities that you need quick turnaround for, I'm thinking more of the light industrial, general labor sort of industry, where you need X amount of people by Friday to work one specific project, I think text marketing is an incredible way to get your message to those individuals so that they take action quick. Showcasing your brand identity. This is the fun part. And this is the part when you think about social media that everybody is already familiar with, and usually the first stepping stone. So somebody has a Facebook page, they have an Instagram account, you have a recruiter or staffing specialist that has a Twitter account, and they say, hey, let's start up a Twitter. I've had one for 5 years, why not? I can run it. Almost every single time, this is the type of content that will start to go up. Because this is how they use social media. This is how, on a personal level, individuals use social media. Meaningful interactions, looking at conversations. Facebook wants to put the social back in social media. So that's where this content does really well. But it shouldn't be the full strategy. We need a mix of the other tactics that I talked about. We need jobs. We need to share blog content. Your own content. Maybe it's a great article that you read from Inc. or Forbes, third-party content. And then, sharing Monday Motivation, sharing a Fun Fact Friday, sharing your team who dresses up on Fridays because the Patriots play on Sunday. I get it. We do it too. Although we dress in girl stuff. Sharing that. Again, it's so that when somebody does pick up the phone, or they walk through their front door, your front door, they feel comfortable with who you are, who your company is. If you have a receptionist, doing a series of questions that she gets asked, he gets asked frequently, and putting those on Facebook, putting those on social media, introducing who they are. We have a series of blog content, we're starting to do with video content as well at Haley, called HITS, Hobbies, Interests, and Talents. So the full series is what we do outside of the office. So my article is about how I play the guitar, and used to play shows, and gigged around Buffalo. It has nothing to do with marketing. And the reason for that is, when somebody reaches out, I want them to know who I am and have that personal connection before we get to business and we start to talk about social media. You had a question?
Yeah. What social media should this be posted on? Because I feel like at first I always thought this shouldn't be a LinkedIn thing.
Yeah.
But I think it's such a big LinkedIn thing that has it just kind of become acceptable.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, LinkedIn is putting more of a push towards video content right now, more personal content. Right now, video is weighted really well on LinkedIn. That's why I do almost daily videos, because I'm trying to cut through that noise. Showcasing your team is totally fine as long as it's done strategically and it's spaced out. If every single post is a branded coffee mug, your new team hoodies, your new team polos, your fun Friday because, again, Pats play, mix that in, but don't let it just be everything.
And how often should those be on, if I'm posting a team picture of us all wearing Patriots gear, which
Sure.
we do,
Sure.
should it be on LinkedIn and Twitter at the same time?
I'd be okay with that.
Okay.
Timing is everything on social, but that's kind of changing. So if you look at Twitter, the timeline is off now. It's not one after the other. It's not based in chronological order. You could change that back. Most people don't know how, so they don't. So it comes based on how Twitter thinks what you'll want to see, and they start to show you that. I like to post in the morning, I like to post at lunch, and I like to post late at night. And the reason for that is if you're sharing an available job opportunity, and you're posting that at 11 o'clock, passive job seekers are working. They're not going to see that content. Posting it later in the day, now maybe they've put their kids to sleep, they're done watching TV, they're laying in bed, scrolling through Facebook one last time. We're hoping that we can catch their attention. Look at what works for you. All of these platforms have insights and analytics tabs. Facebook has an insights tab. Analytics.twitter.com will show you the analytics portion of Twitter. LinkedIn has an insights tab. Facebook will show you when your audience is on. If you go into the insights, it'll tell you every single day when the majority of your followers are on Facebook. Post at that time. Unless it's a Monday motivation and you want it to go out at 9 a.m., think about when people are on Monday and share content at that time, or an hour before. Showcasing your brand identity, you could do a meet the team internal, so showcasing who you are. You can also show off people that you've placed in great assignments. So Quentin, what happens with this post? Quentin now sees it. Quentin feels really good about himself. So Quentin clicks like, clicks share. Now Quentin's family sees that post. Quentin's family are now proud of Quentin. So they click like, they click share. Maybe it's an old coach, an old friend. What happens is because this is branded to temp staff in this specific example, their brand is now getting in front of people that don't know who temp staff is. All because we're showing off somebody who deserves attention in the first place. Top staffer's example, she went temp to perm, so they always do a picture of balloons, they give her a goodie bag. Because of that, she feels good about herself, as she should. But her friends and family start to feel good, so they click like, they click share, and it starts to snowball from there. Forgot to talk about, when building online reviews, the thought of offering an incentive. So in these examples, we just want to showcase who these individuals are. If you have Facebook reviews and you're trying to generate more Facebook reviews, and you have an associate that's on location or on assignment right now, and you know they're having a great time and they love it, offer them a $5 Starbucks card in exchange for positive feedback. It costs you $5, and you now have a 5-star review from a glowing review, a glowing source, for $5. If you're generating online reviews, be strategic with it. If you do too many at once, any platform that you're posting to, Glassdoor, Yelp, any of those review sites will see that as spam. So if you are actively generating reviews, maybe it's 1 or 2 emails a day, 1 or 2 a week, but think about it. Don't just send it out to everybody, because if you get too many at once, they won't come through in the first place. So now what? Let's recap real quick. So the roadmap to social media success. Step 1, starting with our goals. Starting with what we're trying to accomplish as a business. What are our business objectives? More applications or more job orders. Then we want to put together a strategy. We want to conceptualize a strategy that will ultimately get us towards that goal. Step 3, we want to deploy tactics. Maybe it's video content, Facebook Live, blogging, becoming an employer of choice. All these new things that are happening on social media, we want to try them. We want to experiment with new tactics. Ultimately, it comes back to, did we reach our goal? We have SMART goals, where the tactics that we deployed successful in helping us get towards that goal. We have to go back to the data. Always come back to the numbers, because numbers don't lie. Look at what's happening on your website. Look at what's happening on your job board. If you have an ATS that's off your website, ask questions. Ask what's happening. Ask for referral sources. If an ATS can't identify those referral sources, I don't want to say reconsider, but think about anything that they can't provide you. Think about what data you can get, because you might have one team member who constantly gets applications and one that doesn't. Maybe it's not the social tactics, maybe it's the fact that their job descriptions stink. And nobody wants to apply because they're selling product, they're selling the ingredients more than the actual experience. We have a podcast called The Secrets of Staffing Success, and on episode 1, Jennifer Lambert from Terra Staffing said that the staffing industry as a whole advertises jobs like the ingredients on a beer can instead of like a beer advertisement. Think about that. If you advertise a job based on what you get or what's the qualifications, what you're doing, make it enticing, especially if somebody's a passive job seeker and they don't know if they want to leave yet. Why should they leave? What's the allure with this opportunity as opposed to the one that they already have? Maybe it's 50 cents more, and that's a big enough selling point. But, we talked about millennials earlier in the keynote. Millennials want more than just salary. They want experience. So check the data. Did you reach your goals? Identify your wins, identify your losses, and launch another initiative. The best part about this roadmap and this social media, the strategy to social media success is that it doesn't end. Once 3 months are up, once 1 month's up, we set our quantifiable goals, we look at what worked, we go back to the drawing board. We go back to our tactics. We try something new. If we were successful, maybe we run the exact same campaign. If we weren't, that's okay. We now know that something didn't work, let's try something new. I think it's important to not get discouraged. 1, don't get overwhelmed. 2, don't get discouraged. If something doesn't work, that's fine. Think about it. You still have your same goal. Think about the strategy. Think about the tactics you're deploying against that goal, and pivot your ideas. I'd love to chat. We still have some time. I'm available for any and all questions, social media, digital marketing related. I believe happy hour starts at 5:15. So I understand that I am standing in the way of you and Cole here. I get that. If you have questions, I am more than willing to answer them in front of everybody. Or if we want to break, I can answer one-on-one. We do have one though.
You said the LinkedIn campaign, doing that you can make a connection locally and you build your own brand. That's the first thing. How do you connect to your staffing agency? Let's say I start making connection with 2040.
Sure.
People I know, first and second connection. I build my own network. When I start reaching out to the on behalf of the staffing agency, how do I transition from it? So it doesn't look like I just am on top.
Great question. Your personal connections live within your account. So you can't transfer those over to the company page. You could, let's say once a month, post a LinkedIn update saying if you want fresh content, job opportunities before anybody else, follow our LinkedIn page and drive people that way. The thought with growing that personal brand, though, is as you share more company content, you share more jobs through the company, more company-branded videos, imagery, that ultimately those people learn who the organization is because of your personal efforts. So it doesn't really matter that it's not going out through the company. They still see that logo. So just a real quick example. All the social images that we put together, the majority of them are branded for the clients that we work with or Haley Marketing Group. The video that I put out almost daily, the logo's in the corner, the logo's also at the end. So my effort is to educate the industry, but it's also so that people will learn about Haley Marketing. And I never sell in a video. I'm not trying to sell Social Pro, I'm not trying to sell blogging services. I'm fully aware that everybody in this room can do all of these tactics that I just outlined. But that call to action with every piece of content is, if you need help, we're here. And that's the exact same way. Sure. You got it.
About the demographic for Facebook and LinkedIn, I'm curious for Twitter,
Yeah.
is there a general demographic on that channel?
There's not, and I think Twitter is still trying to figure out who they are after 10 years, unfortunately. Twitter is a conversation, so aside from demographic, using Twitter's advanced search, so if you go to Twitter and you pull up, I actually have it on here. So you can kind of see it at the top, the search bar right next to our company logo. If you're typing, let's say, hiring for jobs in Boston, need a job in Boston, want a job in Boston, hate my job, and then you filter by location, it'll start to show you Twitter accounts that use that keyword string. So instead of shouting into the noise and sharing job after job, look for Twitter accounts that are already saying that they want a new job in the area. Send them a quick message. Hey Brad, looks like you hate your job. We have 40 available today, and I'm sure one's perfect for you. Have that one-to-one conversation. Be human on social media. Put the social back in social. And instead of targeting that demo on that way, I would target based on keyword. From what we see, Facebook is more of that light industrial warehouse candidate client. LinkedIn is going to be more professional, and it comes back to the main goals of what LinkedIn is trying to do. They want to be a professional platform. Yeah?
Do you recommend Instagram, or do you steer clear of that?
I do, if that's where you're most comfortable. So when I started the presentation, the thought is start where you already know the platform, right? So if a client comes to us, we rarely will take over an Instagram account because I'm not in their office taking pictures, right? And if a client is going to take those pictures, email them to me, I could just as easily educate them on how to do it. If you're using Instagram, Instagram is always going to be a visual platform. That's what they want to be, right? They want to be a photo album online. I would take a look at Haley Marketing's Instagram account. Michelle McCormick from our team runs it, and I'm all for the strategy that we're deploying there. What we do is we use Instagram to showcase who we are. So once a week, we're showing a Meet the Team member post. It's always who we are, what we're doing, whether it's a happy hour, a networking event, maybe it's a team meeting. I took over the Instagram story for the trip, so we're documenting that instead of creating content. Instagram is where I would put all of this, along with Facebook. You can get away with sharing a lot more of this on Instagram than you can on those other platforms. So we're Facebook, if we're going Monday to Sunday, maybe we want to do Monday motivation, a blog article, a job, third-party blog article, fun fact Friday, another job, another blog, repeat the cycle. Instagram, you can do this every day, as long as you have the content to share and you have a team that's okay with being on camera. Anything else? I'm going to put my information up here one more time. If anybody wants to chat, I'm here for the rest of the event. I would love to talk one-on-one. If you have multiple questions, that's fine. Again, I understand that I'm standing between you and a stock bar, so I'm not going to keep you any longer than I have to. I have cards up here, my email's here, or Brad Bialy on LinkedIn. But I want to thank everybody. I want to thank MSA for having me and having Haley Marketing.